Jimmy Hoffa was last seen in the parking lot of the Marcus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan on July 30th, 1975. He was lured to the restaurant under the guise of a business meeting between him, Anthony Giacalone, and Tony Provenzano. A witness reportedly spotted Hoffa getting into a maroon-colored Lincoln or Mercury that was occupied by three men who proceeded to drive away down Telegraph Road. From that day forward, Hoffa was never seen again, and the mystery surrounding his death keeps his name alive and well today, almost 50 years later. There are many theories as to what happened to him, the most popular one being that he was killed by his best friend, Frank Sheeran, in a suburban home in Detroit before being cremated at a local sanitation center. This theory was written about by Charles Brandt in his book I Heard You Paint Houses, which was eventually dramatized in the 2019 Martin Scorsese film The Irishman. The film and book are largely based on Frank Sheeran's deathbed confession, but has been faced with much scrutiny and many disputes as others claim that he is lying. Dan Moldea, author of The Hoffa Wars, claims that Sheeran had nothing to do with the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Moldea's theory is that Hoffa was lured away from the Marcus Red Fox, stuffed into a 50-gallon drum, and then shipped to a landfill in New Jersey. He was then buried in a pre-dug hole and had about 15 to 30 drums filled with chemical waste stacked on top of him. This information came from a sworn affidavit that was signed by Frank Coppola, whose father, Paul, was a partner in the dump at the time of Hoffa's disappearance. This theory is supported by the book called The Iceman, written by Philip Carlo, which details Richard Kuklinski's account of what happened on that fateful day, albeit a little different. According to Richard, he sat behind Hoffa and used the hunting knife to take Hoffa out shortly after he was picked up from the Marcus Red Fox. He was then placed into a 50-gallon drum, set on fire, then placed in a car compactor and sold to Japan as scrap metal. Another popular theory of what happened to Hoffa is that he was buried beneath the Giant Stadium in New Jersey. According to Donald Francos, a mafia boss named Jimmy Coonan took Hoffa out with a silenced .22 pistol at a house in Mount Clemens, Michigan, before he and John Sullivan sawed him up and stored his bagged-up body parts in a freezer for months. Sometime later, during the construction of the Giant Stadium, the bags were driven to the construction site and mixed into the concrete foundation under what became Section 107. Now, despite all the rumors and speculation that surround Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance, we will more than likely never know the entire truth. When former Mafia cap regime Michael Francesi is asked about the whereabouts of Hoffa's remains, he vaguely answers that he knows that the real shooter is currently in prison and that Jimmy Hoffa is somewhere very wet. This has sparked another theory in where Hoffa was supposedly either thrown into the Detroit River or fed to the fishes elsewhere. Despite knowing that we'll never get the full story, it's still fun to speculate and theorize over what really happened to the infamous, hot-headed labor union leader. Rest in peace to James Riddle Hoffa.